What's going on, everybody? I am back. We're here to talk a little Mariners news today. Mariners news today. Mariners have made a trade. They've acquired outfielder Teoscar Hernandez from the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Major League reliever Eric Swanson, minor league pitcher. Probably going to butcher the last name, Adam Mako. Mako. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about him. He was the number ninth rated prospect in the Mariners system. Swanson was a really good reliever last year for the Mariners. Let's talk about the trade itself, get into a little bit who I think won the trade and what it means for the Mariners going forward. I'm just going to pull up some numbers on Teoscar Hernandez here. I just had his stuff up and it went away because, of course, it did. So in 2022, Hernandez was worth 2.8 WAR. For those that don't know, WAR is wins above replacement level. That's not amazing. It's certainly good. He's a good bat. 499 at bats, 133 hits, 25 home runs, hit 267 on base of 316, slugged 491 for an 807 OPS and an OPS plus of 127. For his career, he's a 121 OPS plus player. He's been worth 10.8 WAR over his career. Hit 133 home runs overall. Career 319 on base and a career 819 OPS. So certainly a nice bat for the Mariners. I think immediately you're looking at probably I think you can make a case their second best hitter behind Julio. Depends what you think of Ty France and Gino as well. But certainly a nice piece for the Mariners to have. I think this certainly means that Mitch Haniger will not be back. And it looks like they may still try and move Jesse Winker. I don't think they're necessarily going to commit fully to Jared Kelenic in left field right out of the gate. I think that's smart. I don't think he's earned that yet. And they may look for another outfielder. They may still go with Winker, but I have to imagine that I think that relationship is just soured so much that I think they end up moving on from him. Hernandez is a free agent after this year, so you might be wondering how the Mariners got an impact bat for what seems like not a lot to give up in terms of players. But remember, Swanson was really good last year, and he's kind of got reverse splits. Or he's actually not reverse splits, but he can get righties and lefties out. A lot has to do with that split finger. Am I even gripping a split finger right? That he throws. I hope you saw how the split finger goes. Good motion there. And they get a pretty decent pitching prospect who isn't far away from being in the big leagues. And that Blue Jays team, Mariners and Blue Jays fans both know, having just seen a couple months ago the playoff series between the two of them, that the Blue Jays definitely need some bullpen help because their bullpen really let them down in that series and was one of the reasons why the Mariners were able to defeat them. I'll never complain about, from a Mariners standpoint, complain about trading from your bullpen depth. Bullpens are one of the easier things to build. It's not easier, but I mean, look how the Mariners have done it. Like, they didn't spend a ton of money. You got guys like Paul Sewald that have been good. Now, Munoz was definitely a big trade piece, but he was coming off Tommy John, was kind of a throw-in in the Austin Nola trade. Austin Nola. I always get Aaron and Austin Nola mixed up. Like I said, Sewald. Diego Castillo was gotten a trade from the Rays. He was an international free agent signing by Tampa. Swanson was I'm not going to say failed starter, but a former starting pitcher that just never seemed to have the stamina or was able to really go deep into games, converted to a reliever, and was really good. Matt Brash, as a starting pitching prospect, moved to the bullpen. Penn Murphy wasn't a guy that was considered a high-end prospect. He did really good out of the pen. Matthew Boyd, a former starter turned reliever, and so on. And just, there's some highly coveted relievers. Like, you got guys like Edwin Diaz that got big money to stay with the Mets, and there's certainly some highly touted relievers. But for the most part, I think you can build a bullpen, out of sometimes these misfit guys. And there's always arms available at the trade deadline, too, that you can get to sort of add depth, as well. So I have no problem with trading Eric Swanson. I also thought he fell off a little bit in September, and it was odd. He was not used in the playoff series, didn't pitch against Toronto. He finally pitched an inning against the Astros in Game 3 when the 18-inning game. But it was a little bizarre that they seemed to kind of just go away from him. His September, like I said, did drop off a little bit, so I wonder if maybe there was some nerves there, I guess, or whatnot to go away from him. So looking through Hernandez a little bit here. Obviously, 2016, 2017 with Houston. I'm not sure. I'm not never gonna lie to you guys. I'm not sure if he was traded to the Blue Jays or not, or where he was picked up for. Yeah, I'm not sure if he was traded. Looks like he started 2017 with the Astros and then was in Toronto by the end of 2017. So I'm not sure if that was in a trade or not. He has made an all-star team. I know that. Just looking through the numbers real quick here. That's defensive numbers. Trying to look for offensive numbers. 2020 was definitely his best year, but certainly a limited number. And he did make the all-star team in 2021 as well, where he put up an OPS plus of 131, an OPS of 870, 32 home runs, 116 RBIs. And was still just as productive the next year. Some of those counting numbers went down a little bit, but some of the underlying statistics, the ABs were also down by 51, but the doubles were up, the home runs were down 7, the RBIs were down, but RBIs are not really anything. They're not predictive, a predictive stat. His OPS plus was down a little bit, but nothing that was any significance. The OPS was down from 870 to 807, but the OPS plus was still up there. So the league's hitting was down in general in 2022. So I'd be fine with any one of those numbers. Obviously, a right-handed hitter going to T-Mobile. Is it T-Mobile now? T-Mobile. There's a little bit of concern there, with the longer left field porch and everything like that versus the shorter porch and right. So there's definitely, you're always a little bit worried about right-handed bats, but he's not someone that just relies on home runs either. 35 doubles last year as well, so he's someone that can go gap to gap for you. Certainly defensively, not a stud defensively. In fact, probably overall a negative defender, but you put him in right field, which is smaller in Seattle, doesn't have as much ground to cover, whereas in left field, there's a lot more area to cover there. So, I mean, if you did, let's say, have Jared Kelenic, who's a much more athletic player in left, you'd be okay with Teoscar, right? And plus you have Julio in center to kind of cover that right center field area as well. So you've got a super young athletic center fielder. So I'm fine without having any problem. He can DH in a pinch too if need be. But a much needed bat for a team that, listen, as the Mariners, we saw one thing that hurt them in the playoffs, or at least in that Houston series, their bats just missing that kind of big hit, that big moment. And their offense wasn't terrible by any means this year, but it just wasn't enough to put them over the top. We know the pitching is fantastic. The rotation is loaded. Kirby, Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Robbie Ray, and then, a Marco Gonzalez, Chris Flexen, whoever you want to slide into that fifth spot's a perfectly acceptable fifth starter. The bullpen is still right now in good shape. And now you're improving your offense as well. So you've got a big upgrade in right field. And another thing we haven't really talked about, with Mitch Haniger possibly looks like will be gone, is that when Mitch came back, he did not hit very well for this team. And we were happy to get Mitch Haniger back, as was I, and it was better than any other option they had. But, it wasn't anything. We were at the point where kind of hoping Taylor Trammell would get at bats and get in there, because Haniger just never really got going. He had some moments, but when he came back from the injuries, just never got going. And, I think it's probably time to move on there. I think that's the right decision. I guess there are still avenues they could do to bring him back. I guess you could look at something DH-wise there, but I think that ship has probably sailed. In terms of winners and losers, I know Mariners Twitter, in the moment when I first saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, what a win. Jerry's done it again. He fleeced Toronto for a reliever and a pitching prospect to get Teoscar Hernandez is amazing. And I still will say I think Seattle wins the trade, especially right now in the short term. And I think this is a tremendous acquisition for the Mariners. I think it's going to really lengthen that lineup. They're not done. This isn't it. You hope they can hit free agency, maybe upgrade some of those infield positions, maybe make a trade for, someone like a Brandon Lowe might be an option in a trade. Maybe there was some There were some rumors that were interested in Brandon Nimmo. I think you can still do that. And you go with Nimmo, Julio, and Teoscar. If you can somehow pull off a trade for someone like Brandon Lowe, you've got him in the infield as well. So, I mean, long time, still a lot of things left to do on that. But, certainly, certainly lost my train of thought. Certainly, something to look forward to this team could do. So I love the acquisition. I think it's great. I think it extends the lineup perfectly for the Mariners. I think it's a good trade for the Blue Jays too. They're interested in going after Nimmo as well. So you improve your bullpen tremendously with Swanson. I think he automatically is certainly in the top 1 or 2 pitchers in that bullpen. Mako's a good prospect who's not far away from being in the big leagues to help that rotation. And now you've freed up some money to go get somebody else. And Swanson's got 3 years of club control. Teoscar Hernandez only has 1. So do I think Hernandez is probably the better value player for a season? Yes. But there's a long-term game to it too. And if you're a Blue Jays fan, you're also looking at what you can upgrade. I mean, getting someone like Brandon Nimmo in the outfield there for you. So I think it's a good trade on both sides. I don't know if I'd say, I don't like getting into winners and losers unless it's something so lopsided. I think it's a trade that can truly benefit both teams. So looking forward having Teoscar Hernandez in Seattle. I also will say, last thing I'll say, the vibes are going to be off the charts with Julio, Teoscar, Gino. It's going to be a fun team, and he's still got the big dumper. He's going to be he's always fun. So you can already tell just from some of the videos I've seen of Teoscar, he's a fun guy. So I can't wait to have him in Seattle. I think he's going to fit in perfectly with this team's atmosphere and energy. So really excited for that. Please like, comment, please subscribe. Most of my views are still coming from unsubscribed people. If you like the content, please sub up. Plenty of Mariners, plenty of Seahawks, plenty of baseball, football, anything you can imagine, I'll have it here. So like I said, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.